You've probably seen the blurry old photo of the last dodo or the last quagga from 1870. Those feel like ancient tragedies. But some of the saddest last photos ever taken aren't sepia museum pieces. They're in color. A few came from a modern camera trap. These animals didn't vanish centuries ago. Some died within your lifetime, and almost nobody noticed. Here are 8 real last photos of extinct animals, and the human reasons nobody stepped in. Number 8. The Christmas Island Forest Skink. First described by scientists back in 1887, this chocolate-brown, ground-dwelling lizard was still the most common reptile on Christmas Island as recently as 1979. Then its numbers collapsed almost overnight, and researchers still argue over exactly why. Suspects include an introduced wolf snake, a mystery disease, and invasive yellow crazy ants wiping out the insects it fed on. By 2009, biologists scrambled to start an emergency breeding program, but a careful search of the whole island turned up only 3 surviving females. 2 of them escaped their enclosure within weeks and were never seen again. That left one lizard, a female researchers nicknamed Gump, after the movie character. For months, she lived alone while scientists combed the forest for a mate that never showed up. Gump died on May 31, 2014, less than 5 months after her species had even been added to Australia's endangered list. The photo of her sitting calmly inside a research container is the last confirmed image taken of her kind. In 2017, the skink officially became the first native reptile Australia has lost since Europeans arrived. If a lizard can vanish in near silence, the next animal on this list somehow became internet famous. Number 7. Rabbs Fringe-limbed Treefrog. This wasn't just any frog. It could glide between trees on webbed hands the size of dinner plates, and its tadpoles survived by nibbling skin flaking off their father's back. Scientists only formally described the species in 2008, 3 years after collecting a handful of them while racing a wave of chytrid fungus sweeping through Panama's cloud forests. They airlifted the frogs to the Atlanta Botanical Garden for a breeding program. It failed completely. The tadpoles kept dying before their legs even finished forming. The last female died in 2009. One by one, the remaining males died too, until a single individual, nicknamed Tuffy, was the only one left on Earth. He lived alone in a climate-controlled pod for 7 more years, quietly becoming a minor celebrity as the last of his species. Tuffy died on September 26, 2016. His photo, taken for National Geographic's Photo Arc project, is the last confirmed picture of his species alive. The next extinction wasn't caused by a hunter or a disease. It was caused by the tide itself. Number 6. The Bramble Cay Melomys. This small, reddish-brown rodent lived on exactly one place on Earth, a sandbar barely 340 meters long and rising just a few feet above sea level, at the very tip of the Great Barrier Reef. Surveys in the 1970s counted hundreds of them. By 1998, only 93 remained. Rising seas and stronger storm surges kept drowning the low-lying cay and destroyed roughly 97% of the plants the Melomys relied on for food and shelter. A fisherman who visited the cay almost every year spotted one in late 2009. Nobody has confirmed a sighting since, despite people actively looking. In 2014, researchers spent weeks laying hundreds of traps and running camera checks across the island and found absolutely nothing. Photos from a 2001 survey are the last confirmed images of the species alive. In 2019, the Australian government made it official. This was the first mammal extinction the world has ever confirmed was caused directly by human-driven climate change. Sometimes the last photo isn't of an animal dying quietly. Sometimes it's of one scientist refusing to let. Number 5. The Po'uli. Discovered on Maui in 1973, this stocky, black-masked honeycreeper was already so rare that researchers estimated only around 140 birds existed at the time. By 1997, Biologist Paul Baker had become the only person alive to ever hold one in his hands. 7 years later, in September 2004, a team spent 18 months and $300,000 trying to catch a mate for the last 2 known birds left in the wild. What they caught instead was the very same male Baker had held before. He'd lost an eye since then and looked exhausted. Baker photographed him one last time before releasing him back into the canopy. The bird lingered on a branch, staring back, then flew off. Days later, biologists recaptured him for one final, desperate breeding attempt. He died in captivity 11 weeks after that, on November 26, 2004. The other 2 known po'uli were never found again. Baker still tears up when he talks about that bird today. Not every animal on this list disappeared quietly into a forest. Number 4 was killed for parts. The Javan Rhinoceros, Vietnam's population. As of 2004, wildlife groups believed as few as 6 of these rhinos might still survive in Cat Tien National Park, the last holdout for a species that once roamed across the entire country. That year, a camera trap there caught grainy footage of one, an image conservationists now treat as the last photo of a wild rhino in Vietnam. For years afterward, dung samples suggested at least one animal was still alive out there, hiding. Then, in April 2010, rangers found a corpse. It had a bullet lodged in its leg, and its horn had been sawn off for the black market. DNA testing on 22 dung samples collected that year confirmed something devastating. Every single sample belonged to that one same rhino. By 2009, an entire subspecies had been reduced to just one surviving animal. Vietnam's Javan rhino population was declared extinct in October 2011, leaving fewer than 50 of the species alive anywhere, all confined to a single park in Indonesia. Number 3 is proof that a single construction project can wipe out a species that lived nowhere else on Earth. The Kihansi Spray Toad. Discovered in 1996, this tiny golden toad lived only inside the mist zone of one waterfall in Tanzania's Kihansi Gorge, a habitat smaller than 4 football fields. It didn't lay eggs. Females gave birth to live young smaller than a grain of rice. In 1999, a hydroelectric dam went online upstream, cutting the waterfall's flow by 90% overnight. And the spray the toads breathed through simply vanished. The population crashed from around 20,000 individuals to just 3 animals seen and 2 heard calling by early 2004. Scientists had already pulled about 500 toads into captivity, sensing disaster coming. By May 2009, the wild population was officially declared extinct, finished off by habitat loss and a fungal disease. Researchers believe hitched a ride in on their own boots. But this is the one animal here with a genuine happy postscript. In 2012, zoos in the Bronx and Toledo shipped thousands of captive-bred toads back to Tanzania, making it the first amphibian ever declared extinct in the wild, and then successfully returned home. Number 2 is where this list stops being simply sad, because scientists refuse to accept it. The Pyrenean Ibex. This wild mountain goat once grazed the peaks between Spain and France by the thousands. Hunting and disease caught from farm animals crushed that number down to almost nothing. And by 1999, a single female named Celia was all that remained on Earth. Biologists tranquilized her, clipped a small tissue sample from her ear, and froze it in liquid nitrogen. On January 6, 2000, park rangers found her body crushed beneath a fallen tree, a death nobody could have engineered even if they'd tried. The Pyrenean Ibex was extinct, the first Iberian subspecies lost in over a century. But here's the twist nobody saw coming. In July 2003, using Celia's frozen cells and the same cloning technique behind Dolly the sheep, scientists implanted her DNA into 57 goat eggs, of which 7 became pregnancies. only one produced a birth. For about 7 minutes, the Pyrenean Ibex existed again on planet Earth, before a severe lung defect killed the newborn. It remains the only species ever confirmed to go extinct twice. Number 1 is the bird that most people have actually seen, just not in real life. The Spix's macaw. This brilliant blue parrot, native to one thin strip of forest in Brazil, was already down to a single wild male by 1990, after poachers had trapped every other bird for the exotic pet trade. For a decade, biologists tracked that lone male as he paired up with a female of a completely different macaw species, since no mate of his own kind was left anywhere. Photographers captured him again and again, a striking blue shape against dry Brazilian scrubland. Then, in October 2000, he simply stopped appearing. Searchers combed the area for weeks and never found a body. He had just vanished. Captive macaws still existed in aviaries worldwide, the only reason the species wasn't fully gone. So in 2019, the IUCN made it official: extinct in the wild. His story loosely inspired 2 animated movies that together earned over $1 billion. That could have been the ending. It wasn't. In 2020, scientists began releasing captive-bred Spix's macaws back into that same patch of forest. Want to know if they survived out there? Subscribe.